Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead, and it's weather time again here this week. We're taking a look, and actually, we're back in our offices. Last week, you may have noticed we were mapless, so to speak.
Yes,
We didn't have our maps with us.
we'll work on that when we're on the road. I mean,
Yeah, we'll work on
calculating in
that.
my head how to, I'll just bring
Oh,
bring a
perfect.
laptop. Yeah.
Well, we were at World Pork Expo, and I know he came to you a couple times from there, giving you the weather update. And now Greg is back in his studio. And Greg, what is going on? There's been some kind of crazy weather, even here in the Chicagoland area. I saw like a lot of hail was this
Yeah.
week, and even just storms. And Texas had some storms. So yeah, all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm gonna have put your slides up here
Okay.
and
Yeah,
have
it's
you
been
give us that update. What's going on?
okay. Yeah, it's been kind of active. Some areas still moisture laden, and yeah, those storms you talked about. Just outside of Chicago at Batavia, Illinois. That's the home of Fermi Lab and the headquarter location for This Week in Agribusiness. Our studios are there. They had 83 mile per hour winds and hail, half dollar size, and even a little bit bigger than that. Saw some pretty wild social media video coming out of that particular part of Illinois as well. So those folks got it pretty good. Sections of Michigan yesterday on Monday, and yeah, a good part of Oklahoma, eastern Oklahoma, northern Texas. Storms and even all the way down to the Rio Grande Valley the past couple of days, breaking some of that 105-degree heat and very elevated humidity. That's typically the heat in West Texas, not the humidity, but that helped to get things off and running around that Midland, Odessa area, part of cotton and cattle country that really took a pretty good hit on storms a few days ago. But meanwhile, it's a very favorable setup if you're trying to cross the T's and dot the I's on summer crop planting operations. Still some laggards into Ohio, and if you want to kind of count Pennsylvania as part of the easternmost part of the Corn Belt, they're still a bit behind. In some areas down still south of I-70 and south of I-64, they're going at it a second time through the batting order to get things in the ground. But overall, still a fair amount of the complex is wrapped up and done with planting. Good emergence, good stands so far. Some heat will be appreciated and welcome. We're going to get that in a favorable setup into the Western Corn Belt with time. And there's rain still in the forecast. And like we've been talking about here, we're getting, I don't know how to put it, maybe a little more bearish on the drought thing. It's there already. I don't think it's going to be a setup here in the atmosphere that already drives it. It's going to be the tropics, I think, that'll get this flash drought situation going. And we'll talk about that here in days and weeks to come. I think next week, Tuesday, is our longer range live stream here at Feedstuffs 365. On the Plain States, as mentioned, a couple of thunderstorms still lingering into parts of Texas around the Metroplex, north, at least east of Abilene right down. They're still scattered across the southeastern states, a couple of well-defined swirls on the visible satellite picture there and through the upper Midwest at the current time. Winter wheat harvest operations, about 25 to 35% complete. They've been slowed up through Texas. Single-digit completion into parts of Oklahoma that is behind the usual 5-year averages and still monitoring drought. I know people keep talking about the drought. We're still in a drought, and the drought is worse still in the northern plains areas, sections of the northwestern and westernmost Corn Belt locales. So as we go forward, yes, there'll be a worsening of that, but again, it's points out of the east and south that are becoming a little more problematic on the timing of it and the degree of severity. I think it's all going to be, again, driven on what goes on in the tropical waters in the Atlantic here in the next probably 6 to 8 weeks. In any event, the showers still linger across the deep south and southeastern states, still behind the 8-ball with cotton planting. That would be a good part of Alabama, Mississippi, and Arkansas. That's a good chunk of the cotton belt down there, especially Mississippi. Only 65% of their cotton has been planted. That is well behind the 5-year average. And across the western states, again, we've talked about this on previous broadcasts, that it was a very disappointing, anemic winter and spring precipitation season. We had a storm here and there that came through the west and southwest and Pacific Northwest, but they are already, and this is about the second or third time this late springtime season that they've been into heat. So that raises the specter of runoff issues, as in snow and the peaks of the Cascades and the Sierra Range. And while they had a couple of thunderstorms there at Tahoe and Reno last weekend, on the visible satellite picture, you really can't see much in the way of any snowpack or snow cover lingering there. So the warmer than average and drier than average spring is bringing, again, increased wildfire potential potential. We'll take a look at that in a second. Well, water availability for irrigation, recreation, power, and all that. So that story, and they're still in the midst of still a pretty tough and troublesome drought pattern over the southwestern parts of the country. We'll take a look at that in just a second. So unless we can get a robust monsoon season, but that generates sometimes more lightning than rain, things are going to be still pretty much problematic with dryness and drought going forward there in the weeks and months to come in the southwest. There's Tuesday afternoon weather maps and charts. Best covering of the showers, thunderstorms down through the Gulf Coast area and through Florida. Hip, hip, hooray for some rains down there. Long ways to go before we can get things improved from a drought standpoint there. A couple of pesky instability showers into Michigan, organized rains for the Northeast and New England. Those red areas through New Mexico, West Texas, cotton. Those will be big hail-bearing thunderstorms into that particular part of the southernmost and southwest high plains areas. Overnight tonight, still some thundery weather this evening and heavy and severe east of El Paso, west of Abilene, down to the Rio Grande. You know the story and drill there. It's more either all or nothing rain, flash flooding, and huge hail. So livestock operations got to pay heed to that. And still some scattered showers, thunderstorms, Gulf Coast. Pretty nice weather pattern across the Corn Belt areas. We do see a little front beginning to trick in to tomorrow. Black Hills south of there over towards about Madison, Wisconsin, and along it, that little low out of the Nebraska Panhandle will do just that. But tomorrow afternoon, welcome rainfall for the west and northwestern parts. Yeah, that's the worst drought area as it applies to the Corn Belt, really, except for maybe northern Illinois. So some showers and thunderstorms get going here. The severe weather potential still West Texas in red and up towards Yellowstone. That's another area of the country. If you want to watch hail come down and get, maybe not necessarily get clocked in the head, stay away from it, but that's a big hail bearing part of the country this time of the late springtime season. And some organized rains where many streams and rivers are at or better than bankful. Sloppy feedlots. I'm sure a lot of livestock people can either testify to tough footing, tough haying operations in Texas and Oklahoma, pasture lands, depending on the degree, wet weather. And speaking of wet weather, Montana to the Black Hills and east and along that I-80 corridor out of Iowa through northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So some good news there. There's the 48-hour rainfall forecast and continues to be focused into parts of the Plain States, the Corn Belt areas, and especially down through Dixie. And the severe weather potential is organized. Still slight risk in through areas of West Texas, cotton, and the Rio Grande Valley. Nothing too exciting otherwise. A couple of stronger storms maybe tomorrow afternoon into parts of Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. Nothing like we saw in that little individual lone cell that came through northern Illinois on Sunday afternoon. There's the fire risk out across Utah, Salt Lake City area, up along and east of the Cascades with downslope winds there. So that's going to be a story that builds further into the southwestern states before the monsoon season gets going here in the weeks to come. So the headlines going forward, there is a little break in the heat through the western states. We're going to kind of realign that hot ridge, try to move temporarily into parts of the plains and sections of the western Corn Belt going forward. Active weather pattern continues on. 1 to 2, some outlier 3-inch rains for parts of the northern plains, Iowa, the Corn Palace, Sioux Empire region, southern Minnesota, southern Wisconsin, far northwest Illinois, probably trickling down to maybe a half to an inch as you get into the central parts of the Midwest Corn and Bean Complex. Any cool air and it will lay out here. And that's why the thinking is still has some rain going on here in the forecast, even for the second half of June. And that's okay. But we have some cooler air that'll be settling in across the northern plains up through the Great Lakes region and the northeast of New England. Nothing bitterly cold, but a cool off is slated. There's the upper air configuration for Friday through Tuesday of next week. The H's represent those warm, hot highs that we track in the summertime. That's usually sinking air, compressed air. Typically in the plains and Midwest, you get into these spells of sometimes welcome heat, a light wind pattern that is, and humidity values would tend to climb. So there's one over the southwestern part of the country, i.e. 105-degree heat there over Florida, but we're be able to undercut that ridge and get some showers and thunderstorms going. The main steering currents, the compaction, if you will. Those green lines are really running from the Pacific Northwest up through the northern plains, southern Canada. Then they begin to settle southward across the western and northern Corn Belt. So there's still a tendency for some active weather going on, and that little ripple, that little dent that you see kind of meandering out of the southern plains into the lower Mississippi Valley, into the Ohio Valley. That's part of that wet weather system that's plagued the southern states the past couple of weeks, and some indication that's going to build northward into the Corn Belt areas as well. So there's rain in the forecast for the Corn Belt. There's some warmth in the forecast, and there is just basically good growing conditions, and maybe even an easing temporarily. So some of the dry, drought-ridden areas on the drought monitor are still lingering through northern Illinois and northwest Wisconsin. Kind of a benign looking, uneventful set of maps and charts Friday through early next week. You can see a little boundary across the central plains into the Corn Belt. A couple little lows ripple along it. That's that cool air into the northern plains, northern Great Lakes region. Along and south of that front, there's at least more typical mid-June temperatures. No torrid heat, a buildup of humidity. And each time we get that front to kind of wiggle back and forth north and south, there's an upper air wave associated with that, maybe a surface low. And we get these little clusters and blobs of showers and thunderstorms. The late night, early to mid morning, take a break, come back late afternoon, early evening, scatter out, then come back again overnight. It's that kind of repeating setup that gets going. So you get dry hours each day. These coverages are probably 40 to 60%. Fair, perhaps, is the best way the commodity guys call it. So some days you get rain, others you don't. Others you get a good downpour. Others, you're dry for a couple of 2 or 3 days. That's the typical layout of mid-June rains as they apply to the plains and Corn Belt locales. The next 7 days focused in Minnesota, Iowa, good part of at least the northern half of the Corn Belt and down near the Ohio River as well. So where we need rain, we'll get rain. Where we don't really need any more rain, we'll get a little more, but nothing too problematic except for those winter wheat areas, livestock areas, pasture lands in Oklahoma and Texas. The wet weather pattern continues on there. Drought monitor going forward here as of late last week, you can see a little short-term dryness, drought-related issues, really topsoil. That's about all that's kind of struggling. So let those roots dig in, I guess. So through northern Illinois, northwest Indiana, southern Wisconsin, you see some improvement through Iowa. Worst thing is you get out west and northwest of the Corn Palace, Sioux Empire region across Nebraska. Still the issues continue through Montana, the northern high plains, upper Midwest. A little improvement down through central Florida. Still some work to do there. And the worst of it still into the Rio Grande livestock areas of Texas, into New Mexico and the southwestern parts of the country, but a remarkable improvement nonetheless to drought across Oklahoma and Texas. Winter wheat harvest delays, but again, some significant improvement there. Just a general outlook from the feds, and we're not going to squabble this for these purposes here. We'll have our longer range forecast next Wednesday, week from Wednesday, on the live stream, and we'll update the rest of the summer and how the tropics are going to be laying out. Maybe a little more detailed look at the rest of the summertime season, just how and where we think drought-related issues either intensify or return. And again, it's probably going to be based on the tropical outlooks going forward off the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico. And precipitation, pretty typical mid-June setup, a little more action through the far northern plains, uppermost Midwest, northern Great Lakes region. Wouldn't be surprised that kind of with time till it connects into the rest of the eastern Corn Belt. And you can see some semblance of drier weather moving into the western part of the country. And so it goes there, Sarah, for a Tuesday here on the 3rd of, not the 3rd, it's the 10th already of June.
Yep.
Yeah, I was thinking back at World Pork Expo. So
right. We want to go back and have some more pork sandwiches. Next Wednesday, I was just looking that up, the 18th at 1 p.m. Greg will join us on Feedstuffs 365 right here to give us that longer term forecast, as he mentioned. Look at the summer, what's shaping up in the tropics. Are we looking at drought? What's going on? So you'll want to tune in for that. And then before that, though, on this Friday, we'll be touching base, Greg, and giving an update on to what might be ahead for the weekend and early into next week. So lots of weather updates, but that's good because weather changes quite a bit. So,
weather impacts everybody, just like Mr. Samuelson said with agriculture. If you eat, you're involved with agriculture, whether you like it or not. So weather-wise as well.
Same thing. So, all right, we look forward to seeing you on Friday, and thank you all for joining us today.